It's here. It's here. It's here. My proof for my book has arrived. All right. Here it is. As you can see, it has a weird band on the front that says not for resale, because this is just a practice proof right here. Hello, welcome viewer, welcome. Here it is. This is my little zine of a book. Zog's little book of little monsters. I don't know if that's backwards for you guys. I wondered if that would happen. Hey, if so, that is also okay. You can see the rest of it the right way around on my social media at samzog on Instagram and also online. All right, so you may have noticed it's not exactly like I have an audience at this exact moment. So why, one might ask, I have asked this of myself, why have you made this book? And the answer to that question is that this book was really made for me rather than anybody else. It was something that I just had to do for myself, to prove something to myself. I kind of consider this little book to be an offering and a reason to begin to be the person that I've always dreamed to be. It's a little bit of a mix of build it and they will come mentality combined with a battle against imposter syndrome. Because the thing is, I have plenty of credentials. I've had poems published in the school, university journal. I've been written in various magazines. I've written for, I should say, various magazines in my city. And I've always wanted to create a collection of my poetry. I've spent years and years of my life making poems, writing them, keeping them hidden in secret on abandoned Tumblr blogs and notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks. And this year, when my life sort of fell apart, as it were, where both of my jobs were hit by the pandemic, and I was set free, essentially. I've found myself just spinning my wheels, running around from event to concert, to the office, to various other projects, all because I did not feel worthy enough to do the one thing that I actually wanted to do, that I've always dreamed I could do. The thing is, when I was a kid, I knew that I always wanted to be a poet. I always wanted to be a writer, and I always wanted to be an artist as well. But at some point, I felt that my dreams weren't particularly well supported. Growing up in a fairly religious family, I'm not religious anymore, but there was just certain expectations there of the future and who you're supposed to be. And I always wanted to be an artist. I always had these dreams. But that combined with the fact that at the time, being an artist just didn't seem like a very viable career path. It seemed like a real gamble at the time. It's a very different world now, a very different environment. I think perhaps if I had known the way that the internet would go and social media and the way that everyday people can build platforms for themselves to share their art with the world, I think maybe I would have dug my heels in a bit more. But being the practical person I am at heart, I knew that I had to choose a path where I could do many possible things with it. So went to school for writing. So I was still following my heart. At first I wanted to do psychology, then I switched to writing. And that was when things kind of changed for me, where school kind of stole my love of writing from me. It stole my love of writing and it stole my love of reading. It turned it into kind of a stressful, nasty thing. So after I graduated, even though I'd always dreamed of being a writer, I never truly felt like, first of all, I didn't feel like I was worthy. I felt like I didn't feel like I had proven myself at that point. Sure, I had a degree, but, anybody can do that with, if they really stick to it. It doesn't necessarily mean anything necessarily. I say to myself, as the world says to me. But now it's time for a new way of being. For the past several years after school, it was like there was almost this weird trauma attached to like the act of writing, as I hyper judged my work, and it just wasn't fun the way that it once was. But after several years, I just journaled and continued to write poetry and do little drawings, just in secret, just for myself. I told myself that if I just keep writing and keep doing what I have always dreamed of doing, maybe one day I'll feel worthy. Maybe one day I'll be bold enough. Maybe one day I'll know what to do with all of the work that I had built up for myself. Then this year hit. I lost both of my jobs, perhaps temporarily. That's somewhat up in the air as well. And my neighbor had a mental breakdown and attacked me, various interrelational challenges. And I just had this moment where I just felt like all of the work that I've done to build up myself into the kind of person I wanted to be was kind of culminating to this point here in 2020, where somehow a pandemic actually managed to set me free. I knew I wanted to start building something. I knew that this was the time, and that if I don't try to do it now, I will probably never get it done. So now, while I had the time and the space to myself, I knew I needed to try and build an online business, make an artist of myself like I always wanted. I took some time to reflect, and I realized that if I don't do this now, I will always, always regret it. So at that point, I kind of had a bit of a mental gymnastics with myself, just trying to decide how I should begin. I had so many ideas floating around, and that's been part of my problem this whole time as well. Is I have so many different interests and focuses. For a while, I just wanted to break into the artistic sphere of my city. So I started getting involved in events, and I started working for a local newspaper, and it fulfilled some piece of me, some piece of my dream that I was reaching for, but it wasn't quite all the way there. So I said to myself, okay, let's make an online presence. What would it take for you to feel worthy enough to really put yourself out there and say, here, I have this for you. This is my art. This is my heart. I share it with you. What would it take for me to do that? And I realized that, I've thought about making a blog for years and years, but I just could never decide on a niche. I've got so many ideas that I've been bouncing between that I just wasn't even sure where to begin. So this year, I took some time to really make a decision that I knew I could get behind and that I would be happy and proud to, walk towards. And I said to myself, okay, self, what would it take to get over your imposter syndrome and make you feel like you are legitimate? And I realized, I was like, well, if I had a product, if I had something artistic to sell to people, that would solidify and make real the ideas that I had of myself, of wanting to be an artist, So I knew, I was like, okay, I need to make something physical that people can pick up and flip through and buy. And I went through a bunch of different ideas of like, okay, maybe I could just do like, I don't know, start with stickers or something like that. And I still think that's something I want to try and do in the future, probably. But that didn't quite hit the mark either, because there's this writer part of me, as well as like an illustrator artist part of me, that has been just dying to get out. So I thought if I could find a way to combine those things, then that would make me feel happy. That would make me feel like more like the person that I've been dreaming. And that's when I decided, I was like, okay, let's make just a short collection of poems then. You want to make a book? That's been one of your dreams and goals for years and years. In my bullet journal, I've been like writing my goals and, making a book, making a zine. That has been on there for a long, long time, but I never really felt like I had, I don't know, like it was a worthiness issue, really. I had the skills that I could have done it the whole time, but it's just not the energy or the confidence to get me there. It's funny that a pandemic was what I needed to really break through that crust around me. So I said to myself, let's make a collection of poetry. And I didn't really know what to make exactly. But then in August, I want to say, just August or September, I was writing in one of my journals, just my blank, I call it my blank book journal. It's my journal where I just allow myself to write whatever I want. And in that journal, this short little poem just popped out of my brain. It's the first poem in this book. The poem for this spiky thing. So I wrote that poem. That was the first one. And as I wrote that poem, I had this I started thinking about, so it goes, it can be hard to get close to. It's a spiky little thing. That was the line that started the book. It can be hard to get close to. It's a spiky little thing. And as I wrote that out, the second line popped into my head. But love grew the barbs of self-protection. Because as I was writing that first line, I started envisioning things like cactuses hedgehogs, urchins, all of these spiky, spiny little creatures. And as I was envisioning those, I started making my own little monster, my own little version of a spiky creature. And that was the first monster. And that's what really solidified, because I had an idea of making a book of creatures, because I've always loved monsters. I've always loved creatures. I've always thought they were fun. I've always thought that they were misunderstood a bit. I've always found them very interesting. And so that was the moment where I was like, well, I've got a poem. I've got an idea. Let's draw a monster and see if we can make more. And so that's when this guy was born. That wasn't his first iteration, but this is what he became. He's a very happy monster. He's a very bright way to begin the book, I think. So I'm glad he was the first one, because the rest of them do take a bit of a darker turn. But I think it's appropriate that the first monster, the spiky thing, I think it's appropriate that he is more lighthearted than the rest of them. Because as far as monsters go, the spiky thing of self-protection is a much more pleasant monster. It's not all bad. Self-protection is a good thing. But it does have its limits. It does have its breaking point. All right, so there's the introduction. This idea of following my dreams. And I'll give you guys a little flip through now, okay? All right. So here's the cover. I think it's actually pretty good. I was afraid that it was going to get here and I was going to hate it and it was going to suck. But it arrived, and at first I had a moment where I was like, I'm not sure about this. But the more I flipped through it, the more I was like, yes, this is what I envisioned. This is what I envisioned, just a floppy little zine of a book. There were a few things that I think I'll adjust before setting it out to publish, setting it out to the market for real. But for an initial proof, I think that it meets my expectations, at least. I was going to say it exceeds expectations, but I wouldn't go that far. I would say it meets expectations. And that's good enough for me. So here we go. Here's the cover. Oh, also the back cover. It's got a freaking barcode, you guys. Oh my goodness. And the back reads, "Welcome home, monsters. Little poems and little drawings live in this little book of monsters. Get to know these spiky, restless creatures a little bit better, and you just might discover you already know them by name. Signed with love to my dear readers, your little monster tamer, Zog." That's me, in case you were wondering. All right. And then so one of the, before we really dive in, I just remembered one other part of the process I did want to share. So when I began, I wanted this to be released in October. But I thought I had it all done. I was excited to let it out into the world. But when I got there, I realized that there were going to be some issues getting this thing to print. And it was probably going to take me a little more time than I initially anticipated. So what I did instead is I just took what I initially had, and I wanted to put it out there, though. Like, it had been building up in me, and I had been working on it for so long. Like every single day I'd been working on it for like a couple of months at that point. And I needed it to be out there in the world. So because I wanted to release the monsters for Halloween, I mean, come on. So when I found out that there was going to be some issues with getting it to print, that I would need to learn some formatting things, and it made me more aware of the quality of my images, and what I would need to do to get them print ready enough to be crisp and clear. So what I did is, and I also needed to make some extra pages just to kind of fill the book out a little bit more, you know. So I spent weeks, I mean, just cleaning up my images pixel by pixel, getting it as perfect as I knew how. Seriously, it was exhausting. I remember, because I'd already been working on those pages for hours and hours and months, and then I had to go over them again, you know. I remember one of them, I think it was, which one was it? I want to say it was the hiding thing. The second one, this guy, I was working on it, and it took me, I was working on it all day one day for 15 hours straight, and I still was only partially done cleaning up the image. So that's just an idea of how long it takes. Like, I had no idea that it was going to take me that long. And I'm not going to lie, there were a few times where I was just really trudging along, not wanting to keep going, but I hung in there, made it through. I figured, by the end, I had figured out a system. I mean, it was still taking me like, 8+ hours at a time to finish a page, but at least I shaved that time down a little bit. And yeah, also I decided to add a whole other new section with some sort of other like ideas of my monsters. I call it my creature vaults. And I also had to create a few more pages, which means I had to draw and create a few more pages as well. Some of the bonus content was already made, and I just had to, fix it, rearrange it, and get that the way it needed to be for print. But I also had to create new pages. So that's why it ended up taking me a long time, longer than I expected. But home stretch. My goal is to have this done before Christmas, and I think I'm going to do it. I'm hitting my goals. Ebook before Halloween, check. Print book before Christmas, I think I'm going to do it. So pretty exciting. All right. So here's one of the pages that I had to create. It's the half-page title. And also, I don't know if people will like this or not, but this is kind of the vision that I had for it. I didn't really want it to be numbered. I wanted it to look a little more, I wanted it to look more natural and more just kind of scrawled, almost like you're looking in, I don't know, somebody's little diary of monsters. I wanted there to be a very alive, sort of feeling to it. I won't, because part of this, the goal for this book was battling my need for perfection and accepting things that are maybe a little imperfect, maybe a little bit a little bit tilted, a little bit wonky, I just wanted to make something that kind of honored where I'm at and what I like, which is this kind of scrappy DIY sort of personality right now. And this is where we begin. So that was Zong's Little Book of Monsters, Volume 1. This is the bonus edition. I've decided that I think I'm just going to leave the original ebook as is. I don't think I'll resubmit it and add the bonus pages. I think I'll just leave the original. And I think I might either make the ebook free to download, or else I might drop the price to like $1 or something. I'm thinking free, but we'll see. We'll see. And then if people want, if they read the original and they just want to like get it a hard copy, you know, that they can flip through, that's got some fun bonus content towards the end, then they can make that purchase at that point. You know, this is how I begin. I want to give of myself in a way to begin. And that's how I envision to do it. So here's the dedication page. This book is dedicated to all the misunderstood little monsters out there, myself included, because when I was a child, I had quite the lack of emotional regulation, and my mother called me a little monster. But really, I was just misunderstood. So this book is to us, dedicated to the little monsters out there. Right. Here's my table of contents. Just the design, I don't know why I designed it that way. It just kind of, it was originally more simple, but for some reason this just shape popped in my brain. And it says, a place for little monsters to live, because I want to create a safe place for my little monsters. And we've got number 1 is the spiky thing. Number 2 is the hiding thing. Number 3 is the restless thing. Number 4 is an uncertain thing. And number 5 is a remembering thing. All right. 1, a spiky thing. It can be hard to get close to. It's a spiky little thing. But love grew the barbs of self-protection. And there he is, my little self-protection, my little spiky thing, smiling alone in his cave. Two, a hiding thing. The fan-like fingers of shame conceal this fragile being, whose boxed-up movements flare up in a moment with a wail and a wincing behind tragic feathers that refuse to try to sink or fly embarrassedly. So there is the hiding thing, shame. And fun little bonus tidbit about this guy is when I drew, really finalized and created this illustration, I was so pleased with him. I was so proud and I was so happy with how he turned out. And I went to bed, and then the next morning I opened my my sketchbook again, and I noticed all of these mistakes that I had made on him. There was one or two that I was aware of that I just decided I wasn't going to worry about. But the next day I looked at it and I realized, I was like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. And oh, that's a mess up too. And there was this part of me that started to feel really embarrassed, you know, really ashamed, if you will. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, well, maybe if I go in Photoshop or, you know, my editor, my photo editor, and I adjust it, maybe I can get it the way I want it to be. But I had this moment where I stopped and I looked at myself and I thought, isn't it ironic the way that I'm playing out this act of shame? I'm ashamed of shame right now. I'm ashamed of the way that he is. And that's why in that moment, I decided that I was like, you know what? No, shame's not perfect, but he's good the way he is, you know? It's good the way it is. And I just decided that I was going to keep the things I didn't like about him intact, and I was going to learn to love them and appreciate this monster the way that it is. I felt like that was it was kind of this symbolic gesture on my end to protect shame from my own judgment of him. I feel like they all have, I've been deciding on their genders. Maybe that sounds a bit strange, but I think that the hiding thing is an it. Yeah, I don't know. Next page. 3, a restless thing. Late at night, with its eyes wide open, taking in, then taken. It hears a sound, it is a sound. It can't stop moving its things around. It moves a brick, removes a brick. Uselessly busy, a mindless awake, insomniac sick. And this is what my little restless insomniac looks like. You know, it's kind of hard for me to pick favorites, but as far as the illustration goes, this one might be my favorite. Like, I really love this spiky thing just because he makes me smile, and I love all of my little monster children. But there's just something I really like about the way that Insomniac looks, you know? And I just had in mind this creature that's just haggard and awake and kind of unbuilding and rebuilding himself at the same time, you know, taking the bricks from his neck and putting them on his head. And I just see him as a creature that's constantly rebuilding and unbuilding himself uselessly forever and ever, all night long. The eternal night that surrounds him. So that is the restless thing. Poem number 4, an uncertain thing. It's this insidious hissing of indecision. It's boring further in. It's looping round the brain. It's carving up the cerebellum. It's an error-locked machine. Each pass erodes what's certain. Each lap, you know less than before. Back and forth and back and forth. The unknowing eats the answer. And this is maybe one of my favorite poems just because I like the way it sounds. And I think that of my monsters, I think that this uncertain thing, indecision, I think he's actually the scariest looking one. I wanted this idea of like, originally I envisioned it as like a snake robot thing, like digging into somebody's brain and just eating his brain away. But I didn't know how to illustrate that without making it look weird. So, but I wanted the idea of like this like snaky creature, kind of zigzagging back and forth and just leaving emptiness in his wake. So that's what I tried to draw here, is he's eaten the space and left emptiness in its wake. And I kind of liked the idea of him being like it might be a she, honestly. I'm still not sure on that one. I think the snake might actually be a lady snake. But I thought I liked the idea of it being like almost like a machine that's just like methodically going back and forth on its paths and looping around the same circuits kind of idea. So that's why it's like a snake who's like got all of this like electric like underneath the skin. All right, poem number 5. A remembering thing. Curls in on itself like a mantis. Layers on layers on. Impressed recollections, collected and recollected. In bottles, alive and brooding. Aloft and looming, yet unbroken in time. It's tethered to these points of nostalgia. It's tethered to these points of pain, tethered to moments that begin themselves again and again and again. Unending. So here we have, that was a little extra rhymey word I threw on the end just for you guys. It's not, that's not the last word. But here we have our remembering lady mantis, the brooding one, as I like to call her. And she was actually the one that she was probably the hardest one for me to draw, because I just wasn't entirely sure how to create the image that I had in my mind. I wanted her to be tethered to all of these like bottles that were full of memories, you know, all of these little bottles of dark, cloudy, wispy memories that are always kind of floating off of her and being collected in jars as she like looks through all of the memories of the past, you know. And I drew her, I gave her like a little brain where she's got swirls coming out of her brain and like kind of a swirl coming out of the center, because I wanted to give the impression that this was somewhat of a hypnotic situation for her. You know, she's entranced by these memories that rehash themselves again and again and again, unendingly carrying on. I like the way that she turned out, though. She was probably the most involved drawing of all of them, and the one I was most uncertain of the design for, definitely. But I like the way she turned out, and like I like her head is in layers, and her mouth, she's kind of like, yeah, like spewing her body out. I don't know. She's a very interesting sort of character. I think she's probably the second scariest of the monsters, but I think she's more curious than anything. All right, and here we have our true name page, because I know that I already kind of gave away all of the monsters' names for you, but the idea is that when you go reading through the poems, each of the monsters' true names is hidden within it. Like the name of the poem, like say it's a remembering thing, but in the poem, if you pay attention, you can see that her name is Brooding. So that was just something, a little thing. I just thought it was fun. I had the idea. I thought it was fun. I thought if I was a kid and I like picked, like, first of all, if I was a kid or a teen or a tween and I saw this on the shelf, I would definitely pick it up. I definitely would. And I'm really proud of myself for that. And I would enjoy it. I would love reading this. So I'm really proud of that, for making something that a younger version of myself would love. And I know, like if there was a kid version of me out there and she read these 5 monsters and their poems, and she got to this page and was like, ooh, each monster's true name is hidden in their poem. Keep your eyes open. I would definitely like flip through and I'd probably be like, oh yeah, I think I know what their names are. And it's not a very super challenging puzzle, but it was just something a little extra I threw in there that might add a little fun layer, that people just read through and then you're like, oh, what's their real names then, All right, and so this is one of the pages that I needed to make from scratch, because here we go to the bonus content. Here we have the Creature Vault. Memories of early monsters. And I just kind of drew this little vault door. I don't know. I kind of like the way it looks. So that's one of the pages that I made after releasing the original ebook. Sorry, I got some hiccups. I had some coffee right before I went on this stream, and I'm getting a little bit of a coffee burp hiccup situation. Moving on. All right, so in the Creature Vaults, here is the ideas for this spiky thing. Wait. Okay. So here is, on this page, you can see this was kind of all of these. My original vision for the spiky thing was I wanted what I saw in my brain is, I don't know if you guys have seen like Spirited Away and the little dust, the little dust mites. That was kind of what popped into my brain. It was just a black, fuzzy, spiky thing with like eyes. So that's kind of how I got like all of these kind of ideas. I tried a few different just kind of dark, spiky balls, but I didn't really like any of them. Was the problem is I didn't really like I didn't like any of those. Well, okay, I liked them, but they weren't quite what I wanted. They weren't quite what I was going for. So like I think I like the attitude on that guy, and that guy's I like the eyes on him. That guy looks like some sort of a skateboarding logo. I feel like there's a skate logo or something that looks somewhat like that, and I think I just subconsciously drew that. Or maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. And here's just like a spiky mess. That's just basically me scribbling and giving him X eyes. So really, and after I had drawn those guys, I was just like, this isn't right. I got to do something else. And that is how this middle spiky guy was born. And once, as soon as I drew him, I just kind of drew his spiky top head with his spiky teeth. And then I drew the bottom of his mouth and I gave him more teeth. And then I was like, okay, I think I like where this is going more than the other things I was drawing. And then when I drew his freaking face, and I just had to make his nose upturned. I just had to. It just popped in my brain, and I just thought it was hilarious looking. And plus he's spiky, so he has to have a spiky upturned nose. And so once I saw him, I just fell in love with him, and I was like, he's the one. So I just drew a little speech bubble, and I had him reading the poem right there. Anyway, this was kind of the practice drawing that I did before I really finalized the design. I just kind of drew because I was like, what do I want to say about self-protection? And I was like, well, I think he should be in a cave, and I think he just should be happily hiding in his spiky cave with his spiky self, just living his life, living his best life, or at least a life that he likes. Ideas number 2. Here we have the hiding thing ideas. So honestly, this guy was actually, I drew a crappier version of him, or this is a crappier version, actually. There was a better version of this guy, this one, in my blank book journal that I drew, where I also drafted all of the first drafts of the poems. And that was the first version of him that I drew, but I was like, I don't know, that's a really weird design, man. But something that I wanted is the main thing that I wanted for Shame was I wanted these big old hands that were like hiding, that it was hiding behind. And I envisioned him in a box at one moment, and I just liked the idea, almost like a sad genie, where he's like trapped in his box, and then he's like unleashed, but he's still like, oh gosh, I'm out of my box, but I'm not ready to be out, so I'm just gonna hide in the closet, but I hope nobody sees me, like that kind of idea. So I drew like that to kind of, after I drew this guy, I decided that I liked him best. Like, I really like this guy. I feel like he's definitely got that like genie looking thing going on, and I like his expression. I think he's cute, but he was too cute. That was the problem, is he was maybe a little more cutesy, and I don't know, I just thought maybe like the horns were too, maybe some people wouldn't like him. I don't know. And I actually preferred this guy. I actually liked him best. I liked his design best. So I was like, I'm going to go with that one. And here's a little practice drawing of him before I like really finalized the design and inked it up. I wanted, because that was his original design, but I wanted him to be like, because I wanted the idea to be like he has wings, but he doesn't use them, so they're all haggard and sad, because he refuses to use his wings. I don't know. Or its wings, I guess. Maybe he's a he. I keep calling him he, so maybe that's a sign. He's a he. And if I change my mind, it'll be it. Or maybe his pronouns are he, him, it. I mean, you can switch. You can be fluid, right? Why not? All right. So here's just a couple more pages. Like, honestly, the design for this guy, pretty much the way that I originally drew him was what I liked. So there was one more crappy, more simple version in my blank book journal before I drew this initial one. But here's him, little draft of the poem that I drafted out. I wasn't sure if I should when I began, I wasn't sure if I should put the poems on the page, like right directly next to the monster. But in the end, I decided to put them on separate pages. And I think that was the better choice. So I'm glad I did that. And here is Indecision. Like you see, this is actually a crappier version of the original. I mean, the original drawings were just like sketches in pencil, and they didn't look very good, in print. So I think I might like post the original really rough sketches somewhere at some point, but maybe, but for now, just the better original ideas. So that was the original design idea, essentially, where, the creepy mechanical snake boring into your brain. That was kind of the idea. And then I also just envisioned him as just like, I drew this little, I don't know, that was just kind of a cute little snake thing, kind of creepy. I just was playing with ideas about how I should draw the snake. And in the end, I went with that guy. I really liked this one. So you'll see it again at the end, because I really, like, when I drew this guy, I just really liked it. So, and I felt like, he's got the question marks, and I thought that was nice. And so I wanted to use him for something else just because I liked that drawing so very much. And I thought it because I just feel like the action pose is just very dynamic on that one. And I was proud of myself and the way that I did the lines. So I didn't want to, I just wanted to put him on display more properly. All right. And here we have this actually was the very initial sketch version of the simplest sketchy version of the brooding one. There was another iteration of her that was much uglier that I didn't include just because it just didn't look good. And so I decided this version to share with you all. Remembering thing, and there's some ideas for her face. Like there's a more masculine version, but I just really liked the eyelashes, because this was just kind of the original idea. It was just like, it's so cute. It was a cute little and this was how I began the poem as well, was with these lines were the ones that started the whole rest of the poem. As I was drawing this drawing, these words popped into my mind. Curls in on itself like a mantis, layers on layers on. I just liked the way that I did that, so I kept that. Layering on with layers. And then I had decided that I wanted the brooding one to have a bunch of like bottles filled with smoky memory stuff. So I needed to design some bottles. So here's the bottles I designed. I actually really like this image with all of the bottles. I might do something else with it. Jars and containers for the brooding one. And they're just cute. Let's see. All right. And we have almost reached our conclusion. So here's another image that I created. I don't know how I feel about it. I've actually got some other plans for this image that you will probably see at a later time if you continue to follow me in my work. But at the back of my book, because I do have a website and a blog, I'm still populating it with more content, and I need to do various SEO and stuff to make Google like it. I'm still kind of learning how to do that stuff, but it should be up and running, by the end of the year in a way that is better, hopefully more searchable than it currently is. And I just wanted to plug my website so that if anybody found this and bought my book, they would know where to find more content, because I also have an idea where once events are a thing again, and, if I start doing the event gig thing like I was doing, I don't know, maybe I could start bringing my books around, and if people buy it, then they'll be aware that I have a website. And I just thought that was a wise marketing move. So that is why I included this page. It's a little search bar with my website, samzog.media, where you can find all of my media. And visit me online for more curious content. So there's that. That way, I don't know, just a little visual representation of what you need to do to get to my website. You just go to the search bar, you type in samzog.media, Michelle, bam, there you are. All right. And the final page that matters, the copyright page. I'm aware that people usually put the copyright page at the front of the book, and I really went back and forth on whether I should do that / make the copyright page look a little bit more like in print and formal, but that's just not the vibe of this book, man. I wanted this guy to be here at the back of the book. I just wanted him to be kind of the, I don't know, the capstone, if that's the right word. And he is the end. And I wanted to thank everyone for reading and just remind them that this is a work that I have created. I made this work, and I am the owner of it. So there you go. That's the end, my friend. And then look at this. Now I've got a little barcode, little distribution thing made in the USA. And there we go. That was it. That was it, guys. Whew, man. I was really, really nervous. I ran some errands, and then when I got back home, this was on my doorstep, and I was like, it's here. Oh my gosh, it's here. It's here. It's here. It's here. And I was so nervous, but I immediately just like ripped it open, and I was like, okay. And then I read through it, and I was just like, okay, I love it. You know, little zine of a book. Just with a little collection of poems that I wrote with little monster illustrations that I drew. And, you know, I know it's not perfect. I know it's not the best book out there. I know nobody cares. I know there's no reason for anybody to care about this. And that's perfectly fine with me because I don't know. Like I said, I made it more for me. And as a gift for everybody who might be interested, you know. I'm going to keep going. I want to continue to make collections of poems. As you can see, this is only volume 1. So I do plan to make more monsters as we go on. So I think it would be really, really fun to have a whole collection of little monster zine books to my name. I think that would be a wonderful thing. And I've got to get going making more different kinds of content, but I'm very glad that I did this year. It's something that made 2020 worthwhile for me. And I couldn't have asked for better timing. So, my friends, keep your eyes open for my book to be released. I think I'm going to, you can find it, you'll be able to find it on the Kindle Marketplace. Of course, once I'll update the shop on my website once it's live and things like that. And I think I might do a special run of these as well, and make a special run of them for my Etsy shop and sign them or something. And I've got some ideas of a fun little package I could put together that maybe other people would like. I'm not sure exactly if I'll be able to do that part before Christmas or not, but either way, it'll at least be on Kindle before Christmas, and I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep building on this foundation that I've created for myself, and hopefully as I go, other people besides me will find value in what I've created, because I really want, it's what I've always wanted, is to create things that give people hope, create things that give people joy, and make them believe in the magic of life, if only for a little while. So once again, thank you very much, dear viewer, for being here. I hope to see more of you soon. I hope to create more things that will be fun. And until then, this book and this stream is dedicated to all the other little misunderstood monsters out there. Hang in there. We've got each other. See you next time, my friends. Bye.